Hello there, welcome back to our channel. In this video, we're going to go over a question that we at Home Studies get asked all the time. And it's a very good question, so it's one that you should ask yourself before signing up for any international English language test. And the question is, which is better? Which is the exam that I should take? Cambridge or IELTS? So in this video, we're going to focus on advanced users of English. So this is Cambridge Advanced versus IELTS, because this is the most common dilemma that people often ask us about. That said, though, a lot of the content, a lot of the information in this video is helpful for lower or higher levels as well. So even if you're not an advanced student, it still could be worth watching the video because it might help you to make a good choice for the right exam for your level. So if you need to decide which of these two exams to take, or you need to prepare for one of these exams in particular, then I highly suggest that you subscribe to Home Studies. So here at Home Studies, we can help you to prepare for the FCE, CAE, CPE, or the IELTS. So the first, the advanced, the proficiency, and well, the IELTS. The first is an upper intermediate test at B2 level. The advanced is at C1, the proficiency at C2, and then IELTS is for all levels. You see, this is the main difference between the Cambridge tests and the IELTS. There is only one test for IELTS, whereas the Cambridge tests are level-oriented. So how do they compare? Well, this conversion is not precise, but it's more or less what it looks like. So the CAE, as I said, is C1, and this would convert to a score of band 6.5 to 7.5 in IELTS. So, for example, 6.5 would be a grade C in advanced, 7 would be a grade B, and 7.5 would be a grade A. And then 8, a band 8, this would be getting towards C2 or proficiency. While both the Cambridge exams and the IELTS test all 4 major English skills, so that's reading, writing, speaking, and listening, there are quite a few differences between them. So here is a breakdown for Cambridge Advanced, and here is the breakdown for IELTS. Now you can see in terms of skills, the one big difference is the use of English paper. And this is a component that tests grammar and vocabulary. This is very specific to Cambridge, and they don't have this in IELTS. So the total time for Cambridge Advanced is 4 hours, whereas for IELTS, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes. Now, after each of the papers in Cambridge Advanced, you do have a break. So those are about 20 to 30 minutes. It depends on the test center. But for IELTS, there's no break. So you do the listening, the writing, and the reading back to back. So even though you don't get a break between the listening, the reading, and the writing papers in IELTS, I do still think that that is a better choice because it's just shorter. And when you do the Cambridge Advanced and you've got speaking on the same day, which can happen, it's frankly a nightmare. So that's why when it comes to the exam format and length, my vote is for IELTS. Before we get into the comparison between these two, just a disclaimer. Writing is different for IELTS Academic and IELTS General. In this video, we're focusing on IELTS Academic, as at this level, it's more likely you'll need to do the academic paper. But if you do have the option of doing the general one, if that's going to be acceptable for the institution that you're applying to, then go with that one, because general writing for IELTS is easier than Cambridge Advanced or IELTS Academic, okay? It's just an essay and a letter. Right, now in terms of the comparison. So for Cambridge Advanced, there are 2 parts, and these parts are the same length, and so you have the same amount of time for each, 45 minutes for each one. Part 1 is compulsory. You have to write the essay topic, and then in part 2, you have a choice. You can choose to write either a letter, a proposal, a report, or a review. In every paper, they will give you 3 of the possible 4 options here listed. Now, for IELTS, it's a little more complicated. So there are 2 tasks, and they are both compulsory. So part 1 is some kind of summary of information that you're given in a graph, a chart, a table, or a diagram. You have to interpret and comment on this information. Then in part 2, there's a discussion essay that is a response to a statement, opinion, or ideas. Now, task 2 is longer than task 1. So it's advised that you spend approximately 20 minutes on the first task and 40 minutes on the second. So do pay attention to those timings. So doing advanced writing, whether it's in the Cambridge exam or the IELTS exam, it's never going to be easy. It's never going to be simple. And that's just something you have to accept and you have to be willing to work on. That said, I do think that the tasks in IELTS are more challenging, and I find it more difficult to coach students on how to get these right. They are more technical. They are more challenging. So for that reason, Cambridge Advanced gets my vote. Now let's take a look at the speaking test and see how the 2 compare. Well, the speaking test, first of all, is the same for IELTS Academic and IELTS General. Okay, so whichever version of the IELTS exam you're going to take, it's going to be the same speaking test. Now, in Cambridge Advanced, there are 4 parts to the speaking test. There's the interview, the long turn, the collaboration, and the discussion. Now, as you can see there are 3 different kinds of interactions. In part 1, it's the interaction between the examiner and you, the candidate. In part 2, it's just you as the candidate speaking on your own. In part 3, it's a collaboration, so you are working with your speaking partner, the 2 candidates working together. And then in part 4, it's the examiner who gets involved again and who will be asking the questions. In the IELTS speaking test, on the other hand, there are only 3 tasks and there are only 2 kinds of interactions. So you either speak with the examiner or you speak on your own. There is not a speaking partner in the exam room with you. So I think that the speaking tests in IELTS and Cambridge Advanced are actually quite similar. The biggest difference comes in the long turn. Now, in Cambridge, the long turn involves looking at 2 pictures and describing and comparing them and then answering 2 questions about those pictures. In IELTS, the long turn, it's simply that you receive a card with a topic on and a few prompts, and you need to talk about that on your own. Now, I think the picture task is more difficult. I think it involves a lot of different skills and a lot of different language. I think it's just more being tested. Whereas in the IELTS, you talk about more familiar topics. The language is not quite as demanding. And also in IELTS, you do get a minute to prepare. In the Cambridge Advanced, you don't. You have to just start speaking almost immediately. So for those reasons, in this case, my vote goes for IELTS. Just like with the speaking, the listening is the same for IELTS Academic and IELTS General. So let's start with Cambridge Advanced. In the listening, there are 4 parts, and the exam task format is fixed for each of these parts. So what I mean by that is you will always do the same kind of task in part 1, in part 2, in part 3, and part 4. Part 1 is always listening to 3 extracts and answering 2 questions about each extract. So there's no variation there. What's more, the recordings are played twice. In IELTS, there are also 4 tasks. However, the exam task format is variable. So that means there are 9 possible options for tasks, and you don't know exactly which ones are going to come up. So it's a little bit more difficult to prepare. In addition, the recordings are played just once, so you don't get the opportunity to listen again. Now, with Cambridge Advanced, the listening tasks have a similar degree of difficulty. In IELTS, on the other hand, they progress in order of difficulty. That is to say that section 1 is the easiest and section 4 is the most difficult. In terms of transfer time, you have 5 minutes to put your answers onto the answer sheet for Cambridge Advanced, and you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers for IELTS. So while, as I said before, some of the listening tasks in Cambridge Advanced might be a bit more difficult, you don't have that order of difficulty that you have in IELTS. It means kind of that they're all equally difficult. I do think that the listening twice makes a big difference. And the fact that in IELTS you have no second chances, for me, is kind of a deal breaker. And I think that really I need to give my vote then to Cambridge Advanced. Let's now turn our attention to the reading paper. So just to give the usual disclaimer, reading is different for IELTS Academic and IELTS General. Like before, in this video, we're focusing on IELTS Academic. Now, for the Cambridge Advanced exam, there are 7 parts. There are the 3 use of English tasks, which, as I mentioned before, are something quite unique to the Cambridge suite of exams, and then 5 reading tasks. Now, these reading tasks test different reading skills. Unlike in the listening paper, there is no transfer time. This means you need to put your answers on the answer sheet as you go. In IELTS, on the other hand, there are only 3 passages. So those are 3 long texts and then 8 or 9 tasks related to those texts. Now, in IELTS, there's a wide range of activities that can come up in these tasks. It can be multiple choice or matching or true, false, not given, labeling a diagram, etc. So you really don't know which of those tasks are going to come up in the exam, while in Cambridge Advanced you do, because it's always the same task formats. Like in Cambridge Advanced, there is no transfer time. Now, like with the writing, the general reading for IELTS is noticeably easier than the Cambridge Advanced and the IELTS Academic. So if you have the option to go for that one, then I encourage you do so. The reading is a tough one, honestly, because I feel like they are both so challenging. For me, the good thing about the Cambridge exam is that you can go onto autopilot. If you're prepared, you know exactly what to expect in the different parts. You don't have to read the instructions. You don't have to make sense of them because it's always the same. You can just get in there and start reading. You know what to do. In IELTS, it's the opposite. The instructions and the tasks can vary from paper to paper, so you have to really pay attention to make sure you don't make any mistakes. And I think that can add some stress to the exam day because you're not 100% sure what's going to come up. The Cambridge Advanced, however, is longer. There's more to do, and it's also got those tough use of English activities. Especially use of English Part 4, which is a real stinker. So for this one, I really can't say. I'm going to have to give it a tie. Now, I'm sure you've been waiting for us to cover this question, which is, how do I pass? What is the grade I need to pass these exams? Well, it's probably not a big surprise to you that the Cambridge and IELTS grading systems are quite different. So for Cambridge Advanced, you need 60% to pass overall. Now that is an average of 60% or more. That means you can fail one of the papers and still pass the test. For example, if you get less than 60% for the reading and use of English paper, but you get more than 60% for the others, then you would receive a pass mark in total. Now the Cambridge system is graded A, B, and C. So you would find out if you pass or fail, and then you would get a specific grade. IELTS, on the other hand, is graded on a band of 1 to 9. So 9 is what a well-educated native speaker should get, but they often don't because of the trickiness of the tasks and the instructions. So technically, you can't fail an IELTS, but if you get a 3, this isn't going to get you very far. To study at a UK university, for example, you need an IELTS band 6.5 and you need to get 6 or more in all the skills. So there is a minimum you need to get for each of the papers. So students often ask me, which do I prefer to teach? So this is kind of a personal verdict. And to be honest, I do prefer Cambridge. So I'm sorry, IELTS academic. I know you have a lot going for you, but my kind of preference is definitely for Cambridge. I think students learn a wider range of language. You can explore different structures. There's just more focus on general English, and I can see kind of people's overall skills improving more when they do the Cambridge preparation courses. There's also the word building stuff that I really like. So yeah, I'm sorry to say, but for me, it's an easy call. Now, when it comes to the validity of these qualifications, Cambridge is obviously better. You see, a Cambridge qualification is valid for life. There is no expiration date. Whilst IELTS is only valid for 2 years. So that is a pretty short validity. But now I need to give another disclaimer, because to be practical, if you did your Cambridge exam 10 years ago and you haven't spoken English very much since then, your qualification will still technically be valid, but it might not be taken seriously and you could be asked to take the exam again. But in theory, you can see Cambridge Advanced is better. So let's focus now on the reasons why people take either of these tests. If you need it for work purposes, then you can get either the Cambridge Advanced or the IELTS. There's not going to be any real difference there because both are internationally recognized qualifications of English language competence. So you can be sure that if you have one of these certificates, it's going to show your employer that your English is at the level that it needs to be. If you want to be, safe, if you want to be sure, you can contact them beforehand and find out if they favor one or the other. But really, in my experience, both of these should do fine. Now, if you need it for academic purposes, then IELTS is the most widely accepted university entrance qualification. So IELTS might be the one to go for, but that said, the Cambridge Advance is accepted by 100% of the universities in the United Kingdom. So both really are good qualifications to get. If you want to be sure, then just contact the university or the institution that you're applying to, and they will tell you which one of these is a requirement for entrance to their institution. If you need it for visa and immigration purposes, then definitely IELTS is the one to go for. All immigration authorities that require an English language test will accept IELTS. And in fact, in the UK, for example, there is a specifically designed version of IELTS, which is the IELTS UK VI, and that is IELTS for visa applications. So this is 100% the one to go for if you're looking to immigrate abroad. And finally, if you are doing one of these exams for, personal goals or personal development, then Cambridge Advanced is a popular choice because you can start from, PET or KET level, so from A2, B1, and you can systematically move through the exams in their suite until you get to your final goal, whether that is Cambridge Advanced or Cambridge Proficiency, but you can clearly map your progress year by year and test by test. So 5 categories. We've got 2 points for IELTS, 2 points for Cambridge, and we had 1 tie. So really you can see it is too close to call. At the end of the day, it depends on you and your purpose, your reason for doing this test. So why do you need the certificate? And this is the key question that you have to ask yourself, which one is required by the university that you're applying to? Or which one is preferred by the company that you're applying to? Or which one do you need to get into the country that you want to move or travel to? So in summary, if you're going to take one of these tests, you need to do your homework beforehand so that you make sure you take the test that is right for you. Now I know that there's been a lot of information in this video and there's lots to think about and you might be a bit overwhelmed by it. So this is why we've made a nice little summary just for you that you can download for free, and this will give you all the key information you need to help you make the right decision. So to get this download, just click the link below. Well, that is going to do it. I hope you're feeling a lot more confident about making an informed decision about which of these exams is going to be the right choice for you. If you do feel like you got something from this video, then please go ahead and share it on your socials. And if you have any questions about either of these exams that we didn't cover in the video, then go ahead and put those in the comments section below. We'd love to hear from you. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope I'll be seeing you in another video soon.